what came up in their conversation. What came up with their conversations? Any aha moments or points of intersection? Yeah. I'm really good at waiting until someone's brave enough to speak, so I'll wait.
I'm terrible at keeping the silence going, so I'll just jump in. Yeah, so I met Soraya, which is really cool because she's also the new person to a new city. She's the one starting Denver. So we're exchanging our stories and sharing a little bit with her how this process have gone so far. So I just like this kind of bonding moments, like, oh, we're in the same position. It's gonna be really hard, but uh, the team is very nice to help her to help everyone out. I mean, I'm very interested in Denver and I've never been, and she's also exploring it. So I think it'll be fun for her in this journey as well.
Amazing. Thanks, Keith. Nice to hear about yours and Soraya's connections. One more person who wants to share? I see people smiling, which makes me think they're thinking of sharing. I'm really good at waiting. Okay, that's fine. I'll go on. I'll move on. But if you want to share in your chat, that's fine too. You can share what came up in your conversation. I don't want to keep you all too long. So great. Well, it was nice to see people connecting. And now we'll share about the details of the program. So this is our team. You met Jess earlier. Jess is our executive director. Rima is one of our program managers. Rima, you can wave at folks. And then I'm also a program manager. We are a small but mighty team, and we love our YCore fellows. And if you become a fellow, we will be your main points of contact and are always available to chat. So there's three main components to your experience as a YCore fellow. Number one, you'll get to work on a capacity building project, which means you'll use your existing skills to support a nonprofit organization that drives systemic community-based change. The second is you'll get to attend bi-weekly workshops to learn important skills and explore complex topics with fellows in your cohort. And the final part is you'll get to learn fundraising. So you'll practice a very important skill while supporting the YCore program. The commitment is $2,000 for project leads and $1,500 for fellows. And we do have a sliding scale option available. So please do let us know if you need that. So I know this is a lot of text, but this is kind of answering something that a lot of people ask us about. So you could either apply for a project lead or a fellow role. A project lead partners with a nonprofit to scope a project and leads a team of fellows to execute the project. A fellow supports the execution of a pre-scoped project along with other fellows on a team. And the timeline, so for months 1 to 3, the project leads are scoping projects with nonprofits. In month 4, the project leads are interviewing fellows for their team. And in months 4 to 7, fellows are executing the project with project lead oversight. And then the final bit of information to share on this piece is that the project leads and fellows attend workshops together with their distinct cohort. So cohort 1 is the Bay Area, and then cohort 2 will be remote. So that'll be all non-Bay Area cities. I did want to share some context on YCore's expansion in the US. So in 2016, we started in the Bay Area. In 2020, we added a Denver pilot with Foster Source. And now in 2022, we have the Bay Area, Dallas, and New York, and some potential new cities. I know we have someone from Boston in here, as well as Denver. So excited to see what comes of this application round. So talking about the current opportunities that you can apply for. If you live in Dallas, New York, or the Bay Area, then you can apply to join an existing project for the winter. And our project leads for those projects will talk about their projects later on. If you live in any US-based city, then you can apply to be a project lead. Some of the reasons why people apply to be a project lead is, one, they might be excited to start a project in their city. Two, they're excited about leading a project and a team. And three, they feel energized to learn about how to scope a useful project with a nonprofit. More than 670 young professionals have gone through this program as project leads and fellows. Gianna, who you see pictured here, is one of our lovely alumni who served on our alumni board last year. And she continues to stay connected with the YCore community, including fundraising for YCore, as well as our nonprofit partners. When YCore works with nonprofit organizations, we think of ourselves as partners, not saviors. So this means we recognize the nonprofit organization as the expert in their community and their work. Two, we scope the project based on the partner's needs. Three, we make ourselves available to the partner during and after the project cycle. And finally, we only take on projects that use our existing skills. Our nonprofit partners are constantly impressed and telling us how impressed they are with YCore fellows because they're professional, dedicated, and compassionate. Many of our partners have actually invited fellows to join their board of directors or stay on as volunteers even after the program is done. Here you see a photo of one of our YCore project teams. They're still in their program cycle from the fall. This is them doing a site visit with their nonprofit partner, Pie Ranch. And site visits are a really important way to build a closer relationship with your nonprofit partner and gain a deeper understanding of their work. And it's really exciting also to see that a lot of our alum continue contributing to nonprofits long after the fellowship. So this is a photo of Ben, who was in the YCore program, and he was invited by Camp Common Ground, a nonprofit in the Bay Area, to join their board of directors. So it always really energizes us to see when things like this happen. Final slide I'm going to share with you and then open up for questions you have. And I see that there's questions coming through the chat as well. So applications are due on January 23rd. If you apply today, you get a guaranteed interview. At the end of January, we'll be scheduling interviews with eligible candidates. And then February 4th through the 6th, we'll be sending out acceptances to people. And then these are the program dates depending on what you apply for. So yeah, I will pause now and let you unmute if you have questions.
I want to start by just calling attention to a couple of the questions that I answered in the chat from Eden, just about fundraising. And the first part is that, so the commitment that we ask you to make is not a commitment that's a personal contribution. Most people do primarily fundraising from their community. Some people use corporate matching. Some people do make a personal contribution, but very few people cover the whole thing with a personal contribution. And we tailor that amount, the $2,000 and the fifth, something that's open to everybody. It's an option for everyone. And then the fundraising total isn't actually due until a month after your project's complete. So there's no rush. We give you a lot of support. So definitely not something that you need to worry about when you're applying in the first place.
Once that money is raised, where is it used? Like, is it used for future YCore projects?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that goes directly to YCore operations. So that covers the cost of your cohort and the cohort that comes right after that.
And then as far as the workshops go, can you give some examples of like what they would entail or who leads them?
Yeah, so I lead most of them. Sometimes I get some help from Rima and Thara. Rima leads our scoping workshops, and then sometimes we'll get some help from alums, but they are an hour and a half long. For all of our remote projects, they'll be in the afternoon. And then hopefully, if all goes well, for our Bay Area people, we'll start having them in person as soon as it's safe, and those will be in the evenings. And we cover a lot of different topics. So we start off with a little more tactical content. So it'll be things like empathy interviewing. We'll synthesize some of the information that you've gathered from your partners. So they're pretty related to your projects when we start off. And then as we get towards the middle of the program, we transition to more kind of big picture topics. We'll talk about some of your values. We'll do some exploration of systems thinking and how that applies to your project and how that applies to your work. And then as we get towards the end of the cohort, we start to think about kind of big picture, like what's your philosophy of giving? How do you want to continue to show up for your community after this cohort is done? And then in the middle there, we also have our fundraising workshop, which is pretty tactical and just like, here are some tips, here's how you can do this type of activity. We try to make them as interactive as possible, especially on Zoom. There's a little bit of lecture content, but it's definitely much more like talking, small groups, working with your team.
Thanks, Jess. Thanks, Emily, for the questions. Any other questions coming up for people?
I'd love to learn more about just as a lead, as a project lead, what exactly that entails from, so would you be responsible for also kind of filling your cohort? Have there ever been instances where there just haven't been enough applications for a specific city? And if so, what do you kind of do then?
Rima, I'll let you take that one.
Awesome, great question. Recruitment in general is a team effort. So YCore will lead all of the recruitment efforts, but we definitely ask our project leads to help us spread the word in their networks. If you're coming in from a new city, we'll also ask your help in identifying places within your city where young professionals might be looking for opportunities like these. So like that information or the knowledge that comes from being a part of that community that we won't have, but we'll work together on it. So we have all the templates and we create a bunch of social media content and stuff, and we'll work with you the whole time to fill your team. Sometimes what happens is we'll just have a slightly smaller team. So maybe instead of 5 people, it'll be 4 people, and that is perfectly fine and has happened. But generally, I think there's usually a lot of excitement, especially with the new city. And so we haven't run into a problem yet where we haven't been able to do a new city project because of a lack of applications, but we're good at troubleshooting and working with whatever comes up. So we'll figure it out with you. You're never alone in any of the processes.
Any other questions before we move on?
I had one more question. This is Eden. In terms of participating in multiple projects, once we've participated in perhaps as a fellow in a winter project, is it possible to come back around for a summer application?
Jess, or you or Rima, I'll let you guys answer.
Totally, because it's scoping. Oh, sorry, can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Yes, sorry, it cut out. Did you want me to answer?
No, sorry, I think my internet is a little weird. I started answering. I'm happy to have you answer, Rima, but what I was saying is, yes, it happens all the time. It's awesome to have people do multiple cohorts. Sometimes people take a break in between being a fellow and a project lead because the scoping overlaps a little bit with the cohort, but we've had people do both at the same time and it's awesome. So yes, that's totally a valid thing to do. Just keep in mind that it's each one is a kind of 5-month commitment. So it's a long time to be part of the YCore program, but we love it. We're excited to hang out with you if that's something that you're excited to do. Oh yeah, Rima added, we have 3 folks right now who are returning after their fellowship, so it's super common.
Great questions. Anything else coming up? Okay, great. Let's move on, and then just keep chatting if anything else comes to mind. So super excited about this next part. We're going to introduce you to some of our winter project leads. So on the left, you're seeing a screenshot from Zoom that includes me and Rima, but then the rest of the lovely faces you see are our winter project leads in the Bay Area, Dallas, and New York. And then on the right, you see a screenshot of the logos from the projects that that we're taking on. So yeah, so I'm gonna actually have Max and Keith unmute, and both their videos are on, but you can just wave at everyone so they know who you are. And thank you both for being here to chat with us. Can you, each of you, start by introducing yourself and describe your YCore project? Let's start with you, Max.
Thank you so much. Happy to share. Can everyone hear me? Thumbs up.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Just to give you a bit of background, my name is Max, and I'm really excited to be leading the project with the Child Poverty Action Lab, or CPAL. During the day, I'm a Teach for America Core member, which is fancy for being a 5th grade teacher. And then at night, I will be leading this project alongside Sarah, who's also here as well. Sarah can wave too with CPAL. So she'll be one of the points of contact. We're really excited because with CPAL, there's 2 main objectives for our project, or 2 really big questions we're looking to answer. Number 1, how can we increase benefits for families across the DFW area? A lot of families might get one benefit relating to like rental assistance, or there's a variety of different benefits a family could have. And our goal is to make sure that each family and each child, as a result, is able to live in an environment that would allow them to thrive. And as a 5th grade teacher, this is something I see and interact with every day, but trying to maximize the amount of benefits each family can receive can really be a turning point in terms of poverty. And so after we've sort of isolated those core drivers of how to improve this benefit outreach, we're looking to design a tool or a dashboard, something that CPAL can actually use and bring to life with the services that it offers, ultimately to help families and empower them. And Sarah, if there's anything I'm missing or you'd like to add, I'm happy to have you supplement as well.
Yeah, no, Max, I mean, I think you described it perfectly, but I'm really delighted to be here to represent the Child Poverty Action Lab here located in Dallas. And as you know, as Max has described, I mean, our mission, our North Star is to try and impact child poverty in our community, to try to reduce it by 50% over the next 20 years. 1 in 3 children in our community actually live in poverty, which is completely unacceptable. And so this benefits delivery initiative is really to figure out how to put more money into the pockets of our hardworking low-income families in our community. And these are benefits, these are dollars that have already been appropriated by our Congress, and who has recognized that there are many families in situations that need these additional work supports. So what Max is designing is really to help us figure out why there is so much money being left on the table by families, to figure out what are these barriers, what are these hurdles, what are the things that are preventing people from really finding some of the means and finding the finances that can actually help lift them out of poverty. So we are very excited about it and extremely excited to be partnering with YCore. What an amazing group, and I appreciate being able to be here tonight to learn more about your project. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Sarah, for being here, and thanks, Max. Keith, do you want to go next?
Yeah. So hi, I'm Keith. So I will be working with Big Brother, Big Sister of New York City. They are a branch of the big federation, Big Brother, Big Sister federation that has organizations across the U.S. So this organization is focused on kind of building and supporting mentoring relationships for inner city kids, but also to focus on how to maximize their future potential. They have mentoring programs for high school kids, but also college kids to help them prepare to enter the job market and to actually have a direct sense of direction, how they can achieve and fulfill their dreams and their career goals before they even step into the job market. So I truly believe that mission and that goal. Not unfortunately, I wanted to work more closely, but what they need right now, the most crucial part of their need right now is to help them kind of revamp their staffing process. So they have different career paths within their organization for their staff members, but they don't have a systemic structure that will help guide new staff hires through their career and what they help them identify what they want to do and what to learn within the system. So we will be helping them develop some a sort of core competencies, a more clearly structured career path within their right now three different career paths in three different branches of the organization so that the staff member knows exactly what trainings to take, what areas of competency to work on and acquire so they can move further within the organization. And as an HR professional myself, I believe that this is very important to allow the organization to perform in a much more efficient way, hence further helping the kids because they have more resources and manpower to be released.
Great. Thank you so much, Keith. So question for both of you, and also I encourage all of you to chat any questions you have for Keith and Max. What has the experience been like for you being part of a remote program, living in a different city from each other and the staff organizers? And this is kind of a question especially for folks here who are not in the Bay Area. Either of you can go first.
Sure, that's a great question. I think remote people are naturally skeptical about remote work, especially after the first 2 years. And having taught all online the first year, now all in person next year, I can personally attest to the fact that being in person really improves a lot of the relationships and a lot of those interactions that really was looking forward to and want to have. And I think one thing that's been unique about YCore is they've empowered us to learn what we need to using the remote network, but they've also got us excited about when we lead our projects, having the chance to also have site visits, have interactions, things where we have like a hybrid sort of approach to our problem solving. And I think through the hybrid approach, we can get the best out of everyone. And Keith can add on too.
I don't know how to follow that. But I can just say to everyone who will be working remotely with YCore, I think Soraya and Sayana, you asked about potential problems. So when I first started, I was Rima can attest to this. I kept asking, what if I don't get a project? What if I don't find teammates? Right? I always think about the worst case scenario, but even with this kind of remote 3 hour difference, they've been always very supportive and always quick to help. So don't worry about running into problems. The team's always there. And I think for me, I'm personally used to dealing with a 12-hour time zone difference with my family in China. So 3 is okay. But I think we're all getting used to working remotely through the pandemic. So I think it's just important to focus on the efficiency right now that we can just work like this without even seeing each other and just get the best out of the projects.
Perfect. Thank you. Anybody want to unmute themselves and ask a question out loud to Keith and Max? I have a few more questions, but I'm going to pause for the rest of you.
Max, so I'm assuming the project that you're leading is more like hybrid as well?
Yeah, great question. And Sarah can also touch on that too. How I envision the next few months is definitely a combination of in-person and remote. I think there's certain work that lends itself to more remote, but one thing I want to prioritize, especially here in Dallas, is as at least on like a bi-weekly at worst, like a monthly basis, doing something where we have a collaborative space that we can work together. So maybe that could be at CPAL. I'm also a graduate student at SMU in Dallas, so I have access to a lot of those resources as well. So I consider myself an extrovert, and I think that I think I will go out of my way to have opportunities where people are collaborating in person safely every so often, or as often as is reasonable. I hope that's helpful. And Sarah can also add anything that might be helpful about CPAL. I 100% intend to do a visit if that's okay.
Absolutely. No, we as soon as you're ready. I also think it's really important for this work, as important as, and again, a lot of it obviously can be done remotely, and especially, technology development. There's so much of that work that lends itself to that scenario. But I think especially when your work is ultimately going to be client facing, that it's really important to have the opportunities to connect with those people ultimately that your project will be serving. And so, I hope as things improve in our public health situation, that we're able to also offer some of those opportunities. I think it can really positively impact and importantly impact the work certainly that Max is planning to do. So.
Thank you so much. Great. And then I had one more question for Max and Keith. So for people who are interested either in becoming a project lead or a team member or fellow at YCore, what's one piece of advice you would give them?
I think I already gave my advice to Soraya is during the scoping process. I think I was happy with a short list of potential partners that I found. And, I found organizations that I'm interested in education, in gender issues and all that. But I went through a panicking period of time because one, it was end of the year, so all the organizations are very busy. But different organizations have different kind of busy seasons all year, so be careful with that. Pay attention to that, but also reach out to as many as possible. And one, give yourself more option, but two, also give yourself more chances of having organizations reply to you.
Awesome. And just want to make sure it's a piece of advice that I would give, or I want to make sure I answer it correctly.
Yeah, correct. Incoming fellows and project leads. Mm-hmm.
I think one piece of advice that I was told from a former YCore fellow was really try as much as you can to get a lot out of the sessions. YCore will lead a few sessions every like 2 or 3 weeks or so. And those spaces, even whether it's a breakout room or however you can collaborate, I've gained a very different perspective just from hearing other people's stories in those kind of spaces. And so I was kind of pessimistic at first as a remote teacher, putting kids into breakout rooms and thinking like, oh, is this going to work? But very different in a YCore setting. And so I was very pleasantly shocked with some of the conversations that I've been able to have and what I've gained from those instructional sessions. And so I think my piece of advice would be to definitely embrace those and go in with an open mind, because there's a lot to gain from them.
Thank you, both of you. And actually, Max, on that note, you helped me segue to the final part of the work of this session, which is to chat and connect and get into breakout rooms, actually. And so we are going to have two rooms. So the main room, 2 staff will stay here and chat with anyone who's interested in being a project lead in their city. So this is really good if the existing projects we have are not in your city, and or you're interested in learning more about the project lead role. And then there will be one breakout room that will be about Dallas, New York, and Bay Area projects. And so if you're interested in applying for an existing project, you'll go to that room. And Rima, is there a way actually for people to self-select into the room, or should I? Yeah. Okay,
so
perfect.
I set it up. Yeah.
Perfect. Yay, technology. So great. You can self-select which room you want, and you can toggle between those two rooms. And yeah, let's connect.
If you're not familiar with the select breakout room option, at the bottom of your screen, it says breakout rooms, and you should see the option to join the Dallas, New York, and Bay Area projects room. Sarah, I'm gonna hop over to that room too.
Perfect. That sounds great.
Great. We'll hang out here.
I'm relatively like new to YCore, just as far as like learning what the organization is, and I'm based in Denver. And I saw that there weren't any like established projects in Denver. How often do people kind of join YCore and not follow the kind of progression from fellow to project lead? Like, is it difficult to join the organization as a project lead from the get-go?
No, most people most project leads come in as project leads right off the bat. So yeah, you definitely don't have to be a fellow first. I would say the biggest thing for project lead that's different from being a fellow is just there's more project management and team management involved. So if that's something that you haven't had a lot of experience with, we can kind of talk more about what that looks like. We also provide, so we have during those 2 months, a lot of help with the scoping and project planning process. So there's a lot of support built in for like how to construct a project. And then we have project mentors who work closely with you towards the end of the scoping process and then through your project. And luckily in Denver, we actually have some amazing folks who are mentors there and are kind of waiting for more projects to mentor. So the support system in Denver is really excellent. So we'd be super excited to have another project lead there.
Okay, that's awesome. And are the mentors like YCore alum, or are they? Okay.
Yeah, they've all been through the program, and our folks in Denver, one of them was a fellow and now has mentored 2 projects. One of them was a project lead and then served on our alumni board for a year. So they're both like really well versed in YCore and how it works.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah, cool.
I had a question as well. I'd love to learn more about just how you find projects. I guess like my biggest concern going into that is, what if I just don't find any project or people, and like it is a big responsibility, and I just feel like I need a bit of reassurance around that.
Totally. We have never had a project lead not have a project. In fact, we usually have more projects than we have project leads. That's obviously a little different in new cities. Sanjana, remind me where you are.
Boston.
Boston, great. We haven't been to Boston yet, but that's fine. Boston's going to be great. There are a lot of nonprofits there. So the way our scoping process works is that we have a database of nonprofits. We're not going to have that yet for Boston, but we'll help you identify that we use to reach out to people and get those conversations going. And I'm sorry, y'all, my internet is cutting in and out. So if you lose me for a second, just ask me to repeat something.
It's fine, yeah.
But we'll support you in that process. And so every single scoping period, there are some people who get way too many responses from nonprofits in the first week because they just reached out to too many people. And then there are some people who it takes 3, 4, sometimes even 5 weeks to schedule some calls. But in both cases, we've always gotten a nonprofit partner on board. And I'm super confident that with Boston and the folks that we know there, the sheer amount of nonprofits there, that we will be able to find you a project. And so once you start to have those conversations, we have a whole structure for how to evaluate projects, how to evaluate partners. So it's really straightforward, and we kind of walk you through it with as much support as you need. Similarly for team recruitment, we ask you to do some of that work, but we support you every step of the way. And as soon as you start feeling like you're falling behind, like we're there to help you make up the difference.
And in terms of the workshops that you guys mentioned earlier in the session, are those every 2 weeks? Are there any, I guess, different or additional workshops for project leads, or is it kind of like the same things? Or do those just happen earlier in those 3 months when you're sourcing?
Yeah, so for the first 2.5 months, we have workshops with just the project leads, and that you'll probably actually be with the Bay Area leads as well. But I think we also have had, and Thara, you may know this better than I do, we've had separate calls for all of our remote project leads, just so we make sure we're catching everything that's happening. And so those are just project leads. And then once the cohort starts, that's with everybody. And all of those workshops are every other week. So usually we're not meeting together more often than that.
When it comes to that, because you mentioned you have a database of nonprofits that you've partnered with in the past, are there many organizations that YCore has partnered with kind of on a recurring basis?
Yeah, so not in our remote cities yet, but yeah, so it averages around 15% of our nonprofits are recurring partners. So we have nonprofits that we've partnered with 4 or 5 times. Some we just partnered with 2 times. So a lot of our partners will come back.
And then is there kind of just like a wide range of different professions that like YCore fellows and project leads come from?
Yeah, it's a pretty big range. It's I just ran the numbers from 2021. Let's see if I can remember that.
Really testing you.
I know, I definitely don't remember them, but it's about 50% tech. And then, but that's also because we're in the Bay Area. So in other cities, we expect that distribution to be a little different. And then we have kind of like 10-ish% of like finance, consulting, other kind of like big ticket professions. And then we have a number of folks, we have like 8% in healthcare, about 8% in the nonprofit sector already who are looking to do more volunteering. And then we get kind of a smattering of people who are working in arts or education. And then right now, especially, we get a lot of people who are between careers because it's a time of transition for a lot of folks. And this is a nice way to figure out what you want to do with yourself.
Amazing.
This has been super helpful. In your experience, does setting up in a new city involve any additional challenges or just things to keep in mind?
For you as a project lead?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes. A couple of things come to mind. One is that during the scoping process, you're not going to have the name recognition that we have in the Bay Area. Our name recognition is not huge. It's not like everybody knows who we are, but it is helpful to have that. So all that really means from my perspective is you just want to send out a few more initial emails than some of our Bay Area PLs. They might get away with 5. You may have to send 12. I think the bigger thing to keep in mind as a remote PL is that, especially as we start to do more things in person in the Bay Area, you're not going to have as much momentum from staff in terms of building that community for your team. So it is really up to you to set those standards early on. It's not a hard thing to do, especially if you bring if it's safe to have your team meet and gather and be really intentional about that. But it's definitely something that for our remote PLs especially, you want to think about early on is how do I make this team feel like a group of friends or like group of tight-knit people working on a project rather than people who are just doing work after work.
That's great.
And go ahead.
Oh, sorry. When you say remote PL, you mean remote in terms of, well, all the workshops are going to be led by YCore from the Bay Area, and you and your team are remote, but you could still meet in person with your team, assuming conditions are safe, and you could still meet with the NGO, assuming, you know, all parties are agreeable.
yeah, that's definitely what we encourage. And what we're hoping is that like, as things get safer, you can even do the workshops together and just like all call in from one computer. So definitely gather as much as you feel safe doing in your location. But yeah, you're remote from us, but not from each other. Sorry, did you have another question? Yeah.
Yeah, is there much like commingling or socialization between like YCore like members and fellows who aren't on the same project team?
Yeah. Not as much as we'd like, especially in a virtual world. That's definitely something that can be a challenge. We try to do as much as we can to set that up. So for project leads, like you'll do a lot of stuff with other project leads in different cities. You can support each other. And then so likely if you end up running a project in Denver, we'll probably schedule some sort of Denver social event for everybody who's ever been in a project there. And as we build out in other cities, we'll do the same thing. So Sanj and I, we have some alums in Boston. We might try to do something there. Just kind of depends on where things are. But we definitely try to encourage. And a lot of our workshops have a couple conversations that'll be cross team. So you'll at least meet other people. So it's definitely something that we try to prioritize, even though it can be kind of challenging. Hi, everybody. That was a question about cross team socialize.
Awesome. Well, I am so happy with the group that we have here. I hope you'll apply. You all seem awesome. And just based on the questions y'all are asking and everything, it sounds like y'all are thinking hard about like, is this the right fit for you? So if any other questions linger, me, Jess, and Rima will stay for 5 or 10 minutes after. And maybe Keith or Max as well, if they have time. But otherwise, just thank you so much for coming. And yeah, email us if you want to chat and you can't right now. Yeah, that's all.
Thank you all. So good to meet you.
So good to meet you too.
It was so lovely.
Great to meet all of you. Thank you.
Yeah,
Good
great to
night.
meet
Thank
you.
you. Thank you. Thank you.
Oh, I was messaging that girl, and she left. So I
Oh
guess-
no, I hopefully she reaches out to us.
Yeah.
But glad
Okay.
you got a little spiel in.
Hi, Eden. Did you have anything else you wanted to chat about?
I'm just a really slow typer. I was just saying thank you to everyone. I really enjoyed just learning more. It's great to just get all the information from here instead of like trying to read through the website all at once. So thank you guys for holding this.
Definitely. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, it was great to meet you.